Well, and we welcome you guys in to another very slow news week edition, right? Of Catching Up with Coach. I'm your solo host for the afternoon. I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to party. Guys, we're in a diabolical time for all of you sickos that are tuned into college football at all points in time. It is
It is a little scary. Gotta be real with you. It's a little scary, but we're here for it. Obviously, LSU has fired Brian Kelly, and we are now into the witching hour of the coaches' hot board list. And for any of you that have blood pressure issues, or in this case, aura rings that track your heart rate, it is not a good time for any of us because oh my god, it's every look, and all y'all are doing, y'all are just grabbing the old X handle and just refreshing the page. It's not that different for any of us, man. We're all getting on social media trying to figure out what the newest and latest and greatest thing to learn is. What's the scoop? Texting your friend groups and whatnot. We're gonna get to all of that here tonight in the show. We're incredibly excited, man. The viewer counts completely going wild. We've been getting honestly just kind of been getting over a dozen subscribers in the last day. You guys are sick, man. Y'all have been so incredibly supportive of the show, and we couldn't be more privileged and thankful for the opportunity to bring it forward to you. And so, shout out obviously to Russo for giving me the platform to be able to talk to you guys here individually on Tuesday and sometimes Wednesday night. And to be honest, the more that this coaching search keeps going on, it's more content for me to be able to put out to you guys, more often. There's absolutely zero reason why I could not be putting out more content for you guys other than just hours in the day in that pesky 9 to 5, right? But we're gonna get right to it. We don't want to risk any more of any more time getting away from us. So what do we want to know? What do we what do we what do we want to know? Can we get into the into the chat and let me know what it is that you guys are craving to know, such that maybe I can give you anything that I might have that you might not have read already. People crave honesty. That is 100% right. Um, to be completely transparent with you, my phone has not been charged fully since Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Like my phone has literally been perpetually on the charger. I'm absolutely going to owe a visit to my local Apple store to get a new battery after this football season ends. I can assure you of that. If I don't just go and get a whole new damn phone at this point. Um, it's been wild. It's been wild, and it's not to say that I am one of these breaking news fellas or whatever the case, but um, talk around, text around, call enough to know, I guess what is there to know that maybe I'm not going to run out and say on the people's streets, but what can I say? Um, I'm gonna be honest with you. This one, I wish I could have a definitive answer for you. To be honest with you, cuz I'm gonna be street. I think the longer this goes on, I think the more you get your answer. What do I mean by that? We're gonna get to the coach's hot board here in a second, but I think number one or two on that list is certainly going to give you all the answer, all the answers that you might need. The more it goes on, it feels like your head coach is at Oxford. And I don't mean that to say that he's the only one that you would likely be going after uh, to be coaching a team right now. However, it seems as though there's there's only really two or three, right, that I believe that will be competing in the playoff, that they would be, I believe, willing to wait for. I definitely think that if there is one thing I can say confidently, if you get to the tier two ish, and what I don't know is what their tier system is. I have no idea. But if you get to your tier two system, that's when you'll see the kind of the landing punch get landed quicker. Because I unfortunately do think that it will take some time for the people that you want to go and talk about this job and sincerely hire. It will take them completing their season in order for them to say yes or have finalization of their season more into the windshield. And they don't have that yet. There are still several football games to be played. And so I think if this gets to the end of, call it, midway to the end of November and you don't have an answer yet, then you know what I mean? They're obviously waiting, because if not, then you could have easily gone down the road down to I-10 and gotten, John Summerall. You know what I mean? You could have, very easily gone and plucked a G5 type of name or tier 2-ish name if you were to go that route, and you wouldn't have any reason to need to wait. You would have made them an offer that they can't refuse, and they would have certainly said yes, despite what things that they are playing for in their season. Those significant accomplishments are not to be downplayed, but they are certainly not the same as competing for the college football playoff. And so not to say that Tulane isn't going to be in that conversation. They have a big game this weekend. They're only a touchdown favorite in. So we'll see. We'll see what's there for Russo in the building. Russo in the building. Turn me up. And we're going to get to that. I actually wanted to pull this up. We're going to see if I can get this pulled up for a second. I was trying to do this earlier, and for whatever reason, my internet was being a little bit weird as to how it wanted to pull up, and if it was going to make the stream run slow, which I guess you guys can tell me if it is in the comments here, if it is going to run a little slow while I try to pull this up. It may, and if it does, then whatever. We can pull it up. We can pull it up on the other end of it. But let's just get right into it. So I know that obviously you guys want to talk about it. Where are we at? Where is the team now? Well, your interim coach, and for all intents and purposes, for those of you that are obviously following the pod, most of you know who Frank Wilson is. That is your interim head football coach. Russo and I gave a bit of a brief dive on him a couple of nights ago. Frank Wilson is a long time, and I mean a long time legend in Louisiana football and SEC football, of course. Frank Wilson is one of those guys where it doesn't really matter how much turmoil you think that the team is in. This team will play for him. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that to try to like pump sunshine, because this does suck. You obviously have 3 losses before November. You have 3 losses with a team that has absolutely no right having 3 losses. You've had winnable football games that you have not won. In my opinion, at minimum, one of them. At most, you could make a case that they could have been in it with A&M, but they completely gave up at the end there. Frank Wilson will not allow that to happen. At least if it is, it's not his fault. It will be because the players are not, assignment correct, gap correct, whatever the case may be. And I think that Frank is one of those kind of people that will rally the troops. And so as this comment, clearly goes, to my dog, how do you think the team will respond next week? To be completely honest with you, I think they're pissed off. If any of you are sports bettors, if any of you pay attention to lines, the line came out less than a touchdown in Alabama's favor. That is bizarre. That is bizarre. I would have absolutely thought that it was more than that. You will get the interim bump, as they say in the college streets. I think the team is going to respond. I think you're going to run the football. I'm not guessing. You are going to run the football. If there is anything you take away from this stream, anything you write notes down, if there's anything that you text to your friends that you heard, and what, hear my heart. LSU is going to run the football. You feel me? They're going to run it. Their running back coach is now the head coach for the time being. Their tight ends coach, who was an offensive coordinator and is an offensive line coach by trade, is now your play caller. y'all are finna run that rock. You heard me? Like, it's happening. And again, you can believe me or you cannot believe me. This has already been like put out there. We said this several weeks ago. Someone other than Joe Sloan is calling these running plays, and I originally thought that it might have been Brian Kelly. It was obviously Alex Atkins. Alex Atkins is calling the plays, and you have been calling out Alex Atkins run plays for 3 weeks now, and you've been running the ball significantly better than you were at the beginning of the year, and that's not even close. You have literally been running the football for 6 yards a carry. Like, it is perplexing how you can run the ball that efficiently. One of the first, second plays of the game from Harlem Berry, gather so much momentum, and then get to the second half, and he literally touches the ball one time. Once. I don't entirely understand how it's possible that you don't get your playmakers the ball in whatever space that they need to get the ball, but that is going to happen. So I think that's ultimately where you stand. You've seen guys put out some tweets, and there's been some suggestive comments at the expense of Brian Kelly, but also in favor of Brian Kelly. Someone like Colin Hurley, who has every reason to complain about Brian Kelly. Third string quarterback, never was able to lock up second string, had an injury, was away from the team. Young kid, very much young for his grade, skipped an entire grade. He's literally a year younger than he's supposed to be. In his grade and classification. Every reason to be pissed off, young, immature, and have a bad attitude about it, and spoke glowingly of Brian Kelly. He's in the minority, unfortunately for BK. He is in the minority in that belief. Most people that have come out publicly have said, negative things. And Frank Wilson certainly didn't take his podium time to say anything negative. He was obviously very appreciative of the opportunity that Brian Kelly gave him to come back home to LSU, and he said the right things. And Joe Sloan, of course, and some things were being said about Joe Sloan. Maybe there was not, people in the building weren't always on the same page. You could probably read between the lines that there was obviously not a lot of there really wasn't a lot of people disappointed whenever he drove his lariat out of the building. I think there are a lot of people that are excited about the opportunity at hand now that Alex Atkins is calling plays, and now that you have a little bit of more camaraderie in the building. I think everyone's going to rally around together. To be honest with you, Casey, I think that everyone's going to do the right thing. I think that they're going to go out there, they're going to run the football, and they're going to go try to do everything they can possibly do to put a wrinkle in somebody's season. And if it's Alabama, sign me up for it, big dog. I'll drink to that. A lot. I will crush a water boy or a liquid IV. That is a free sponsor, by the way. I will absolutely drink to that after consuming one of those exactly 30 minutes before starting. I would also like to say publicly that there is no desire for this channel, this one, to bemoan anyone's job and kick someone while they're down. Two people lost their jobs, both of which are very wealthy people. They are, not down on their luck by any means as it relates to, the financial status of their life. But it's old news. It's not old news, but it's gone. Like we don't need to kick them anymore. We don't need to kick them while they're down. We can talk about the job that they did, of course. But them personally, I'm just not going to attack them. I'm not going to be that person. I'm never going to be that person. However, I do think that Frank Wilson is a step in the right direction. All the players are certainly going to fight for him. They love Frank, and they are in a good place with him. And that's why I think that you've seen a lot of the team rally together, stick together, and stick around here. What does that mean for, I guess, the bye week? Because technically you will have a little bit of time off. Like, you will have the opportunity for some of these guys to go home briefly, of course. Speak with their families, talk to them about, the current status, and really give their honest opinion and feedback on, what they think. And are you going to lose some names? Yeah, you're going to lose some big names. I'm not, prepared to come out here and say, who I think that might be, but I would feel pretty comfortable in saying that no matter what, no matter how much money a kid's getting paid, you are going to have people that kind of already had one foot out the door and maybe wanted to, go and experience the grass maybe being greener somewhere else. And this was kind of their final straw, and they're not really, willing to wait around to see who their next coach is going to be. They've already got a coach texting them right now, or a staffer or an agent or someone texting them right now, ready to go and drop a bag for them to go and play for them, who they may already know from the recruiting experience coming out of high school or the portal or whatever from previous, cycles. And so instead of maybe trying to relearn someone, they'll just go right and play in their staff right then and there, make some money, and go with a, not go through a more of a growing process or a rebuilding process. And that's their right to do that, man. These kids are obviously very easy to, coerce, financially, and at this day and age, emotionally. I think that is a very big hurdle that these recruiters are having to go through these days. And Frank Wilson, for those of you that, again, for those of you that are just joining us, welcome in. Frank Wilson is the greatest recruiter, in my opinion, in college football, certainly in the Southeastern Conference, and certainly anyone below the Mason-Dixon line. Now that, Nick Saban has taken the TV job, Frank Wilson is legendary, and that's not an LSU homer in me. Go and ask somebody that, if you know some people about in the people streets of the football coaches, and go and ask them what they think about Frank Wilson. Go ask them. That this is the guy that you want to be your interim head coach right now. If you're worried about the recruits and your rankings falling and your 5 stars and your 4 stars staying active and committed, this is homeboy you want. Okay, this man means business. It's not fake either. I have not met Frank personally yet, and if by all means, if this video gets out to him, Coach, I would do anything. I would literally drop anything to come in to come and have a conversation with you and to learn. I would 100% do it without a question. But he does have a big job in front of him, and that job is going to be to get this team right and to salvage what's left of the season. You cannot afford to lose the rest of the way, and you also, I hate to say it, you cannot afford to just let your only win be Western Kentucky. You are going to have to beat Arkansas. You have to beat Arkansas. And I hate to say it, you need to go get in a dogfight with Oklahoma on the road. I'm not saying that you need to go and beat Alabama, but you damn sure better go and bring the fight to them. And if you lay down, I'm going to have some pretty strong thoughts about the mentality of this team. But you're going to have to go and bring the fight to Arkansas. You're going to have to go and beat Western Kentucky, and you absolutely better go and try and salvage your season and have an 8-4 season by going on the road and beating Oklahoma. Because if you don't, you then at that point will lose a lot of the people that think that you can salvage what's left and that it's not too far of a reach to get a new coach. It will be more of a retooling more than a rebuilding if you're able to go on the road and beat Oklahoma at the end of the year and whatever bowl game you might get yourself into. But I will also say pretty comfortably that you do have a pretty extensive hot board here. There's going to be a lot of tea. There's going to be a lot of rumors. There's going to be a lot of, eye emojis, and I heard this, and this person at the coffee shop, and my brother-in-law and them was at a Ruth Chris and heard him across the table drinking red wine that they were going to go and pay this guy, and this was coming, and he's in town. Dude. If you want to know any information, follow the people with the blue checks. Follow the people with the skins on the wall and the respect to lose for getting information wrong. Do not come to random Twitter and Padre Go Tigers 762 13x goal money sign and take his word for it, okay? Because if he's wrong, he can delete the tweet and evaporate from thin air for forever. You'd never know the difference. But what I will say pretty candidly here is my sincere desire to be accurate is ultimately what I wish to do. Am I going to get some things wrong? Sure. But if I hear something from someone that I think knows more than me, I'm going to share it. Now that of course is not going to be as well versed as maybe someone covering the team for 20 years, but I will absolutely do everything that I can do to give you any information that I have. This is honestly a good one. My concern is that we won't get a coach until late December, and the transfer portal is only open for the first 2 weeks of January. To be completely straight with you, big dog, I don't know that you should really concern yourself with the transfer portal anyway. late December puts you at, in essence, not quite 2.5 months. That would put you at a full 8 weeks of not having a coach. I would put that as a 5 or 6 out of 10 on my concern. If it gets to that, that would be a 10 out of 10 concern, because of course you then worry that that's not the coach that the kids want, or that's not the one. They don't have enough time to build the excitement, and then they just hit the portal just like that. The other end of that, it's a little bit different than a coordinator. So if you remember, for Matt House, when Matt House was there, was the tea leaves were that he was going to go, he was going to stay, what's going to happen. There was a sincere desire to keep Matt House by very few people on the staff, but enough that there was real plausibility that he was going to be on the staff again after the 2023 season. And so when that search happened and you didn't have Blake Baker in the wings, you did have a gap in which kids did not know who they'd be playing for directly. And considering the head coach, it's most of the time more likely to think they want to know who their position coach or side of the ball coach is, more than you would think. And that's not to say that, if they go and get, ABC coach from somewhere and the kids don't like them, so they leave, but it just works a little bit different. So I really wouldn't concern yourself with a timeline like that. I also think that you would likely get your answer. You would likely get your answer, I think, before then. I think that you would have something done before then, probably much similar to something like you had with Brian Kelly whenever he was able to kind of be around the team during the bowl game, and it was already done and the season was not over yet. So you had, kind of this like little limbo stage that you were going through. So, kind of look back and think to that, because at some point a coach is going to have to leave his team in the playoffs. Like that is going to going to happen. Like and if you don't see it this cycle, you will see it likely next cycle. I mean, it's happening. We can't get away from it. The playoffs are only going to extend. The coaching search is like, you're only going to get shorter rope here in the coaching search. So I do believe that is kind of inevitable at this point, but I really wouldn't concern yourself with late December. That seems kind of like, if you get to that point, you'll likely just go to your tier 2 at that, and you'll get someone in, which I frankly don't agree with. I prefer that you go after your guy and wait however long it takes. But I'm not the one making the decision. As far as the hot board is concerned, I will say that there is not a sincere, like a individual standpoint coach that is on that hot board that I love, other than I'd say probably 3. I will say that whenever we had this discussion on Sunday, it was kind of I mean, kind of raw emotion, I'll be honest with you. And it was like me and Russo kind of talking about, who it is that we would want. And I still stand by that. I do think that if there is a world that Nick Saban picks up the phone, you have to go and call Nick. You have to. If you have the ability to get that man to come back for one last hoorah, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, then you have to do it. And they're going to call him, and he's going to take the phone call. He may not say yes to it or to the terms, but they are going to call him. I'm pretty comfortable saying that that's going to happen. I also think that you have to do your due diligence, because if you don't turn over every stone, then you will never know. And I do think that there are going to be names that you wouldn't expect to be interested that are interested. Some of those names will likely not be people like we said, Kirby Smart and kind of the the Ryan Days of the world, for different reasons. Steve Sarkisian. I think those people are, Mario Cristobal. I think people like that are likely good where they're at. They've kind of got it. But if you don't think that there would at least be a return phone call with questions about, this, that, and the third. What is the financial situation looks like? What would it look like for me to do this and this? And if I brought this person here from Dan Lanning, I think you're kidding yourself. No one's outspending Oregon. You aren't able to spend enough to get him here. But what happens when because I don't want to be I don't what happens when that situation changes? So think about this. What happens when the people that give Dan Lanning all of that money at Oregon, when that changes hands? What happens if that happens? You don't think Dan Lanning would want to know what's up? You don't think every college football coach that's currently, and let's just say they're, of the, middle to late 30s to, middle to late 60s, you don't think those people know about LSU football? You don't think that LSU being at the floor, a top 5 job in the country, you don't think that would be willing to take at least a second phone call and ask some questions and clarify a couple of things and just say, oh, well, I'm good. Like at least that. I don't think that you get Urban Meyer away from Fox. I sincerely think that you could get more traction with Nick Saban and ESPN just because of the history there. But I doubt that he is obviously an option too. And I don't think that Clark Lee is on the table. I don't mind Clark Lee and what he's done. I would like to see what he could do without Diego Pavia. But I will say comfortably that you can't argue with what he's done, man. Clark Lee and Brent Key feel like similar coaches to me. They feel like ready to get their hands dirty for the fellas, for the brand. Like, let's do it. Like, let's get up in there and let's maybe not win over a boardroom, but he is going to go and be a football coach, and your players are going to play for him, and we're going to win some football games. That's kind of how I feel right now, because Georgia Tech has no business being 8-0. For those of you that don't know who Brent Key is kind of like the Clark Lee for Vanderbilt for Georgia State. Legacy there, literally doing everything that Georgia Tech can do. And I don't disagree. We do need a coach that's hungry. And I'm not saying that you're not going to get that. But what I am going to say is that I do think that you would be at least shocked to know how many people you would be willing to interview and speak to that do fit that bill. So who would I want? For those of you that want to know that, we'll tell you right after we get to our unofficial sponsor, but certainly a personal sponsor of mine, and that's our folks over at Webb Western. Webb Western is a straight shooters company. I'm actually wearing their fishing hat right now. Kind of got the little there you go, yeah, the little logo there in the front. Sick company, man. Sick company. I'm gonna be honest with you. I reached out to him, and it was lightning quick to get on with those guys. Great gear, great hats, great shirts. If you guys obviously want to get a little discount, Trey G10. I'm not sure if I have another one. I don't have another one around, but in the front is like a little sweat clearing panel, and these materials are insane. This bill is completely magnetic. You can literally like just stick like a fishing hook or whatever the case may be to it. The little panel in the front keeps you from ruining the actual outside of it. The sweat stains aren't visible. Incredibly comfortable and super, super breathable. And these hats are gas, man. Super excited to have them on board and willing to bring them up at any point. So code Trey G10 at checkout. If you guys want to get a little discount there, that's Trey G10 at checkout. So who is it that I would want? Well, that might not be that difficult to figure out, because who I want is none other than the visor himself, Lane Kiffin. But hold on. If Saban turns it down, Dan Lanning is up there with me on my Lane Kiffin desire for, who I'd want as the head coach. And I don't know how far you would get with Marcus Freeman. It feels like Marcus is cool there, but he is an impressive coach. He is an impressive human being. Everyone that's met him absolutely loves him. And I do think that he's comfortable there. I'm not sure that I would want him more than Lane Kiffin. But I do know that I wanted him bad as the DC, and he's already chosen Notre Dame over LSU once. Now, granted, it was to be the head coach rather than a coordinator. But I think Lane Kiffin fits that bill, man. The timing, I don't care. Save me the timing. And you know what? If you guys are willing, there's enough of you in here that I can say this pretty freely. For those of you that think that the coach at LSU has to be a fit, I need you all to just take a brief moment, take a deep breath, okay, and say this with me. The head coach at Louisiana State University will be a good fit if they win. Win. You embrace the culture, of course. But what does that really mean? Does it mean you have to be from Lafourche Parish or from Lafayette or Baton Rouge or New Iberia or Reserve? No, it doesn't. And shout out to Reserve, by the way. It does not mean any of that. It doesn't mean that you have to drive up and down I-10 and 12 and be from, West Baton Rouge Parish. Guys, to embrace the culture means to go and get your hand dirty, to go and get your hands dirty, to go and fundraise, coach some football players, develop them into men, come to the podium, interact with the fans, and embrace it for what it is. Be humble. Be a man. Be a man of integrity that is honest but demanding, and actually do the things that you say at the podium behind closed doors. Those are some of the things that unfortunately the previous coach did not do. And what I will say is that I am incredibly disappointed to learn those things, because I was wrong. I thought that Brian Keith Kelly was going to do a phenomenal job here, primarily because of what he did at Notre Dame with less resources and less fertile recruiting ground. I thought, and I mean, we could go back and admit it. I'll go on the record and say that I was absolutely wrong on Brian Kelly. I thought it was a shoe-in. There was not a more like, as far as accolades goes, there was no one that had more accolades of any sport hired at the time, other than Kim Mulkey, than Brian Kelly. I mean, it's just he wasn't willing to do some of the things that were necessary, and you can only GM your way so much to wins. That if you're not willing to go, and we said this on the show, if you're not willing to go and get your hands dirty to fix something yourself, it's not going to go well for you, because you can't just dog cuss somebody for doing something that you approved earlier in the week. That's not how this goes. So if you're still of the belief that there's a deeper rooted issue at LSU, look no further than if the plays aren't being called that you want to see, then you need to take the play sheet and call the plays. Okay? You're not going to see me come out and say he's not a good fit. Shut up. Shut up. That doesn't make sense. And I'll say something else. I'll tell you something else. If you go on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and if anyone that holds a microphone, okay, and says anything to the concept of a fit or a culture fit, immediately stop listening to that video, because it tells me that you're taking global talking points and running to your microphone to say something and just parrot that little narrative that you heard. If you did not know Brian Kelly personally, then you did not get the ability to say a culture fit, because you have no idea what a culture fit is. Nick Saban was the worst culture fit that could ever be hired at LSU, and he was the most accomplished coach that we've ever seen in the sport at this school. it does not matter where you're from. It matters that you win and put in the work and you have integrity. If you don't do any of those three things, and even if you do two out of those three things, you have a chance to at least win 9 games a season, but you ultimately need to do all three to get to where you want to go here, and that's winning national championships, which you have shown that you can do here. Every so often, you can do it. No one else has won more than LSU, other than Alabama, since 2000. With that, like think about that for a second. For all of the stuff that you've seen with the 6-6 and the 7-5 and the 8-4 and the BK 9-3, 10-2, whatever, though 10-3, whatever, bro, you still have the ability to win here. And that is why this coaching search is going to encompass more people than you might would think. And I think that Lane Kiffin, with the resources here, would do an absolutely phenomenal job. And I do think that if he's able to do it with Ole Miss, who, by the way, get comfortable, they're going to the playoffs. They're going to it. I have a very difficult time seeing them lose to South Carolina and Mississippi State. They are going to win at least one of those two games. They are not losing to the Citadel. And at 10-2, they are going to make it to the college football playoffs. So get comfortable. Get comfortable with that narrative and that notion, because it's happening. And he's going to do it. And he's going to go to the playoffs before you. So what could he do at LSU? My opinion is that he could do more than that. Saban was from West Virginia. I agree with that. And again, West Virginia is what it is. It was that he was from Michigan State, brother. Like, that's nothing close to LSU in no way. Like, and I mean, like, in zero ways is Michigan State similar to LSU. So spare me the fit thing. He was what we felt was needed after Coach O. I understand that. I get you. I'm with you. I understand. And you swung for the fence and you missed. So what I think this list is going to encompass is important. And there's a couple of names on here that I do think are going to get a little bit more run than those of you might think. I have heard a wonderful guy over at the AYS network, Blake Ruffino, has mentioned this a little bit. In his opinion, John Summerall is not going to get the run. That's the Tulane head coach, by the way. He's not going to get the run for this head coaching job, in his opinion, and I think I share that same opinion through people that I work with and alongside in the city of New Orleans. I'm in New Orleans literally 4 days a week for work, and feel as though I have a pretty good idea of what to expect with that. With Jeff Landry having his hands on this coaching search, I have a difficult time seeing him pluck the Tulane coach and bring him to LSU. I think a lot of pissed off people in New Orleans would be pretty aggravated about that and would be willing to be out on him. And I don't know that he's willing to fully go there. But to be honest with him, I'm not really sure if it's completely out of the books. I will also say that Eli Drinkwitz would make a lot of sense for someone that has accomplished a lot with less. I think he's likely in that tier 2 system, along with someone like Kenny Dillingham. So Eli Drinkwitz, coach at Missouri, accomplished just a bit less. He's lost a couple of more games than Lane has over at Ole Miss. Certainly a guy that has an eye for good coaching talent. I mean, every time he hires a coordinator, it seems like they hit. And Kenny Dillingham is a 35-year-old guy over at Arizona State who is a legacy hire over there. But if LSU comes and calls, he's going to take that job. I think Kenny Dillingham, by the way, for those of you that don't know, is a very accomplished fella and would, I think, do well here. I'm not sure that he's my favorite hire. He's not, like a ooh and a ah hire, but he would come and win football games. He would fundraise. He would recruit. He would do the right things. And I think that he would win football games here. But ultimately, does he desire to stay home? Maybe that's the case. But I think this search starts and ends with Nick. And if it does end with Nick, then I think it moves on to Lane and Dan Lanning. And then there is a tier system below that. And if you're willing to wait it out for Lane and Dan, and I think that you would be, I think they would absolutely wait for Lane, especially because you know that one of your heated rivals, Florida, wants him as well. I think you'd be willing to wait him, to wait on him and go and get him. I do think that there is an increasingly likely chance that that Coach Summerall will end up getting an SEC job here pretty soon. And if it's not, Arkansas or, or maybe not Florida, I do think that Auburn makes a ton of sense given his ties to Alabama. I think that the goated radio host down here in Louisiana, Charles Hannegriff, has said that before, and I think I agree with him. And another name, Jeff Brom, another tier 2 name over at Louisville, who I also think would do well and win football games. But I think it's Lane and I think it's Dan as to who it is that you would have to go and give a call. I don't see why you wouldn't. I just don't see why you wouldn't. I think it makes a ton of sense. I'm not really sure that it needs to go too much further than that. I think that you need to pay them what is willing to be paid to get them, and you live or die on that hill. You didn't pay all this money in the buyout to just go cheap on the hire. I think that's ignorant. I think it's ridiculous to tote that notion out there, and I don't think that LSU is going to go cheap on this football hire. But just let it be known, if they do go cheap on the football hire and they hire someone that we all hate, my season tickets will at least be for sale, so you might can enjoy some close to the sideline football tickets. And I'm not kidding. But anyway, I do think that Lane will take the call, and I ultimately think that if LSU comes knocking and gives him a good offer with some money assured to him, I do think that he would take it. And so that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I also think that Lane would give you a breath of life, and I think that he fits the culture of what LSU would ask for. People would fight for him. He kind of brings that Will Wade vibe, and you know how LSU felt about Will Wade, which, not that this is a college basketball podcast, but I feel as though I would say that in the event that if there's a change in leadership at the university, I do think that there is a chance that the general could make his way back to the hardwood if there is an opportunity for that. As it currently stands, I do not think that is a likelihood, but in the near future, I do think that the chance would be there. And how insane would that be for him and Lane to be at the same university? Jesus, the Nazarene! Can you imagine the Twitter feed? Can you imagine the press conferences? And listen, Lane is what he is. He's an internet troll. He's funny. He gets it. The players love him. He would go into the portal and obviously invest his time. I think Austin Thomas absolutely is going to have a say-so in this, and I think that Austin Thomas would love to bring Lane over here. I love Austin Thomas. Shout out to him. It feels like that has to be your guy, and if it's not, then I'd need to hear a good reason why he's not. And if he wants to stay at Ole Miss, and if his family's comfortable there and he's comfortable there, then by all means go and stay there. But to me, it feels as though this has to come down to two genuine beliefs. Belief one is that you have to offer someone a contract they can't refuse, and you have to go out and swing for the fences. And then option two is you have to get someone that's hungry and up and coming and would literally fight and die to have this job. And there's absolutely no other way to go after this hire other than that. And you do have to do your due diligence and speak to their former players and speak to the people around them, because you can't afford to have another hire like what you just did, because we're not going to be able to financially, make it through another one of these cycles like this. Even if they only make the buyout be half paid for Brian Kelly. And there's no confirmation on that to my knowledge here yet, but look, we'll obviously break it down as we get through it. I think there's a lot of things to talk about, but I kind of wanted to just talk about the hot board, my opinion, how I'm seeing it, the current tea leaves. Obviously Russo and I are going to go live on Thursday, and we're going to talk about kind of the preliminary steps to getting prepared. Obviously, Frank Wilson took the podium today, like we mentioned in the earlier onset of the show. And so if you have, the 15 minutes to go and listen, I strongly urge you to do so. It'll make you want to go hit an extra set on Arm Day. He's one of them, brother. He's one of them. Um, but speaking of brother, and speaking of our brothers and sisters that listen to the show, shout out to y'all, man. That emergency live show is crazy. Y'all are sick. I mean, the amount of love and support that we've gotten, privately and publicly here has been absolutely incredible. I'm so excited to get to do this every night. And sometimes it call for later nights, and I know that my better half, shout out to the princess over there, would certainly appreciate a little bit more, dinner time and hangout time to watch her favorite shows. But she's certainly a big supporter of the show too, and I certainly love her for that and her support. But if anybody can do us a favor, just hit the like, share it out, give us a little notification bell for notifications if you want to know when we go live, and just spread the word, y'all. We're growing slowly, but that's how the snowball ultimately gets down the end of the hill. Is it's a build effect, and so we're incredibly blessed to be here. Again, shout out to Russo for giving me the platform, and thank you all for about 45 minutes or so to talk about the absolute swamp of crazy that is the Baton Rouge football market right now. And we will obviously be live in a couple of nights. We will talk about everything related to the bye week and more of the coaching search, any updates or whatever the case may be at that point. But that's going to put a bow on our show for the afternoon. Love you all. Thank you for tuning in, and we will certainly see you all soon. Y'all take it easy.